Imagine a place, a single building that held more knowledge than any other place on Earth. It was a beacon, a lighthouse not for ships at sea, but for the human mind. The great Library of Alexandria. For nearly 1,000 years it stood as a testament to our species' boundless curiosity, to read, to debate, to discover the nature of the cosmos. This was the first time in our history that we collected, on a truly massive scale, the shared wisdom of humanity, a bold and beautiful experiment. The story of the library is one of the greatest stories in human history, but it's a story with a missing final chapter. Its fame comes not just from what it was, but from what we lost. The very idea of it sparks a sense of wonder and a profound sense of sorrow. It represents a peak of human achievement, a golden age of inquiry where science, philosophy, art flourished together. Think of it as our first real attempt to build a collective brain for our planet. A central nervous system made of papyrus and ink, holding the thoughts, dreams, discoveries of countless cultures. It aimed to contain everything ever written. An audacious goal. The legend of the library has echoed through the centuries, a ghost whispering of lost potential. It reminds us that knowledge is both powerful and fragile. What would our world look like today if this vast repository had survived? The question haunts historians, scientists, and dreamers alike. The destruction of the library wasn't just the burning of scrolls, it was the extinguishing of a guiding light. It set our species back, perhaps by centuries, maybe even a millennium. We had to rediscover things we already knew. In our journey through space-time, there are moments of great leaps forward and moments of tragic stumbles. The creation of the library was a giant leap. Its loss was a catastrophic fall, a lesson we should never forget. So how did this incredible place come to be? Our story begins with Alexander the Great. He was a conqueror, but he was also a student of Aristotle. Aristotle taught him to respect knowledge. As Alexander carved out his vast empire, he dreamt of a city that would be a crossroads for culture and learning. He founded Alexandria in Egypt, Africa, Europe, Asia. It was a vision of a cosmopolitan hub, a melting pot of ideas. After Alexander's untimely death, his empire was divided among his generals. Egypt fell to Ptolemy I Soter. Ptolemy was not just a soldier, he was a smart, ambitious ruler who wanted to fulfill Alexander's vision. He decided to make Alexandria the intellectual capital of the world. Inspired by the schools of Athens, like Aristotle's Lyceum, he envisioned something grander. He laid the foundation for not just a library, but a research institute called the Mausoleum, or the Shrine of the Muses. The Museum was a campus for scholars, lecture halls, laboratories, observatories, and even a zoo. The scholars who lived and worked there were paid by the state, given free meals, and exempted from taxes. Their only job was to think, to research, to write, and to expand the frontiers of human knowledge. The library was the heart of the Museum. It was the fuel for this incredible engine of discovery. How do you fill the greatest library in the world with a relentless, almost fanatical determination? The Ptolemies launched an aggressive worldwide acquisition campaign. Their agents scoured the book markets of the Mediterranean, buying any and all scrolls they could find, Greek tragedies, Egyptian medical texts. Their methods were sometimes unconventional. A famous decree stated that any ship docking in Alexandria's harbour had to surrender its books. Scribes in the library would then meticulously copy the scrolls. The original was kept for the library's collection, and the newly made copy was returned to the ship's owner. It ensured a constant flow of new material from across the known world. The library's ambition was truly global. While its core was Hellenistic, containing the complete works of Greek poets, playwrights, philosophers, its reach extended much further. One of the most famous projects was the translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, known as the Septuagint. The library was a multicultural, multilingual institution, a true world library. Scholars were not just reading, they were actively editing, translating, and creating definitive versions of classic texts. They were the first to put plays by authors like Sophocles and Euripides into a standardized order. Callimachus created the Pinakis, a 120-volume catalogue. This was the world's first library catalogue. It allowed scholars to navigate this vast ocean of knowledge. The library wasn't just a warehouse of scrolls. It was an organized, curated, and accessible system. It was a living blueprint of the cosmos as the ancients understood it, a universe made of ink and ideas. So what happened? How could such a treasure be lost? The popular story, the one you see in movies, is a single catastrophic fire. Julius Caesar is often blamed. During his siege of Alexandria in 48 BCE, Caesar set fires to destroy enemy ships. The flames spread to the docks and, supposedly, to the library. That fire likely destroyed some scrolls in a warehouse near the port, but most historians agree it did not destroy the Great Library itself. The Museon, the main library complex, were in a different part of the city. The end of the library was not a single dramatic event, it was a slow, painful decline. The truth is messier and sadder. The library's destruction was a death by 1,000 cuts spanning several centuries. The first major blow came from within. In 145 BCE, Ptolemy VIII, a cruel anti-intellectual ruler, expelled all foreign scholars from Alexandria. That brain drain was devastating. The vibrant international community that made the library a center of discovery was shattered. Funding was cut. Royal patronage, once the library's lifeblood, began to dry up as the Ptolemaic dynasty weakened and became entangled in Roman politics. The spirit of open inquiry began to fade. Subsequent centuries brought more trouble. Alexandria was volatile, prone to riots and civil wars. Parts of the city, including areas near the library, were damaged in conflicts such as Aurelian's War in the 3rd century CE. Each wave of violence chipped away at the institution. The final symbolic blow likely came with rising religious intolerance. By the late 4th century CE, the Roman Empire had become Christian. In 391 CE, the Patriarch Theophilus sanctioned the destruction of the Serapeum, a pagan temple that housed a daughter library. This wasn't the Great Library itself, which likely had ceased to exist as a coherent institution, but it represented the end of an era. An age of reason and classical learning was giving way to an age of faith, where ancient knowledge was often seen as pagan and heretical. The library didn't burn in one day, its light was slowly snuffed out. What did we lose in that slow, fading light? The answer is simply we can't be sure, and that is the most profound part of the tragedy. We have lost not just the answers, but even the questions. Think of the scientific knowledge. Aristarchus proposed a sun-centered solar system. We had to wait for Copernicus 1800 years later. Hero of Alexandria built a primitive steam engine, the Eolipile. It was treated as a novelty. We might have had an industrial revolution 1,000 years before the 18th century, and then there's the human story, the history. We only have fragments and summaries quoted by others. We have a patchy, incomplete puzzle of our past because the box with most pieces was destroyed. The story of the Library of Alexandria is a cautionary tale. It's a stark reminder that knowledge is not guaranteed. It can be lost. Progress is not inevitable. It can be reversed. Neglect, political turmoil, suppression of free thought. But the story is also a source of inspiration. Every library, every university, every research lab, the global network of information, the internet. We are, in our own way, trying to rebuild the Great Library. We are its inheritors. What if it had survived? Where would we be on our journey into the cosmos?